Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday evening here. This is Jim Dabbelt coming to you. And with me now is a very special young lady who not only has landed a dream job as in basketball after an outstanding high school and college career, but now she's down at Texas Tech at Lubbock, Texas. Coach Marlene Stollings, welcome tonight, and thanks for joining me tonight as we talk a little bit about the history of the game and maybe a little bit about your present team, Texas Tech, and thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Jim. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, no question. It's been a long time. You know, you and I go back a long way, and it's great for me to see people like you still involved in the game and an opportunity to help today's young athletes.
Well, thank you, and I think the work that you continue to do is phenomenal. I mean, like you said, we go way back. I remember as a kid meeting you when you were doing all the work and in your area, and you're still doing it. And I mean, the people in Ohio need to be really proud and understand what you do and all the selflessness that you do to help promote girls basketball is at a high level.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to making a big announcement with you tonight also with, speaking of history, we'll talk about that after a while, but you're down at Lubbock, Texas Tech, the Red Raiders, I believe, is that correct?
It is.
Tell me how your time at Lubbock's going so far.
Oh, it's been great. You know, the one thing about here is it reminds me of home a lot. The people in the community love girls basketball. They love women's basketball. You know, this program led the nation in attendance when Coach Sharp was here. And, you know, it's kind of neat because I get on Coach Sharp Freeway every day going to work. So to have a female with a freeway named after her speaks to how serious they are about basketball here. And it's just been a fun time. I've really enjoyed it here. And it's nice to have an 80-degree day in February too.
Yeah, not bad. I'm jealous. It's 35 degrees up here last night, so I'm a little jealous about that. But you take the good with the bad, right?
That's right.
So obviously, you know, you're no stranger to Ohio. You know, you grew up playing basketball, I believe it's Pike County, Beaver Eastern High School, where you ended up as the all-time leading career scorer in Ohio history with 3,514 points. And if I'm not mistaken, going by memory, I think Diebler was second as on the guys' side. I think he surpassed maybe 3,000, but I think he fell short of your record. So you still hold the record, which just goes to show you, you know, that you look back. You know, sometimes kids don't understand the magnitude of things, and now you look back on it, you know, 20, 25 years later, and you're thinking that record still stands. That's a pretty special accomplishment.
You know, you make a great point because I can remember being in high school and, you know, there was a lot of media attention, and especially coming from a smaller town, that was unusual. And, you know, the fans and the crowd support grew. I remember the fire marshal being at games and not letting people in. I specifically remember a coach from Vanderbilt coming in from Nashville to scout the game and almost didn't get in the gym. But for the record to still be standing is, you know, I had no idea what I was doing at the time. As a high school kid, in Pike County, I knew it was special, but I had no idea of the magnitude. And to think that we would be on a call here in 2020 talking about the record still standing for both boys and girls, I would have never in a million years believed that as a youngster. So I guess it took me many years, as it does oftentimes with people, to realize the significance of it, and the fact that you know, it really was something special at that time in my life, and it still stands. So I just can't believe that part, but I'm excited for someone to beat it one day, and I hope I'm alive to meet the person and congratulate them.
Absolutely. Records are made to be broken, as we always like to say, right?
Right. That's
you know,
right.
It's amazing to think about the fact that, you know, you talk about kids not really grasping the concept of like breaking 3,000 points. Most people celebrate, as they should, 1,000 points. And then you have your very rare 2,000 point scores, you know, and then you're the only 3,000 point female scorer. So you think about that, and it's almost mind boggling to think 3,000 points. It doesn't matter who you play. It doesn't matter anything. 3,000 points is an incredible number. And you know, my hat's off to you for a great career, you know, way back in the day. And, you know, kids, like you said, you don't realize it till you have kids of your own. Like I'm now doing what I do with kids that had moms that played back in the day. So it's like, wow, you're still in this. And it really makes them appreciate not just me, but just people in the game, because they're like, this, this was me years ago. Now it's my daughter, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the old time. Your old AAU coach, Tuck Connor, who is still, still going strong in the AAU circuit, tells me a story that, he came out to the house one day and you had a barn that had an old rim on the outside of it. And, they said around the 3-point line, it was all worn through, like all worn, like that's all you're shooting threes all the time from out there, which obviously led to a great 3-point shooting career as well in high school and college. But, you talk about that, and so many times nowadays, everybody wants to go to the greatest person to get them better, when in reality, you can make yourself better like you did and like we did back in our day, at your home, in your driveway, on your barn, etc. Some people forget that, that's all there was back then.
Well, yeah, you make a few great points. I mean, we didn't have trainers and really didn't have access to a lot of inside courts and gyms, and you had to be creative and make your own way as far as that goes, especially when you're in more of a rural community as I was. And I have to credit my dad, although at the time it frustrated me because he would never pave the court for me. He would never put a slab of concrete down or anything, because he said, he always used the line that when we drive by those courts that have concrete, you don't ever see anybody out there playing on them. So he used that. But I actually am grateful for that, because I think it saved my knees and ankles quite a bit in my career, not pounding on concrete and blacktop all those years. But I did. That's a true story. So we did not live on a farm by any means, but we had a barn and house some, small animals and things like that. But on the back of the barn, my dad put a hoop up, and kind of the significance of that too is, and part of the story that I think is kind of neat and didn't realize it at the time, is my dad took a rim that was actually, it had been cut in two for some reason, I don't know why, and he welded it back together, and it was about an inch tighter than a regular rim. So you had to be more accurate for the ball to go in, long and short of it. And that's the rim that was up at the barn, and that's the one I shot on all the time. And one of the ways that I monitored if I was shooting enough was to keep the grass down, because it was just a dirt court, it was just grass and dirt. So the more you shot, the more it kept the grass away. And if there was a spot, usually on the left side, because I'm right-handed, that grass started to grow a little bit, I knew I had to work on my left hand and get in that area a little bit. So I just kind of used it as a personal challenge to make sure I was getting enough shots up in all the areas.
You look at, doing what I do compared to now to then, a lot of people are now jumping into doing what I do. So you hear a lot. Social media is huge. You hear a lot. You read about players all the time that are amazing players. Don't get me wrong. But then you look back when you played, and with Katie Smith and that era, there wasn't social media. There wasn't the opportunity to see a kid's name every day. How difficult was it for you and people like you and Katie, to be able to be like, hello, girls can play basketball too, don't forget about us, kind of thing, when you didn't have the daily reminders and tweets every day about the great players? And being a head coach now, you see the same thing. You see a lot of kids' names over and over. Back then, you didn't have that.
Yeah, I think the important thing during our time with like Katie and myself was that, AAU was so important. It was vital. And you referenced Tuck earlier in the conversation, but he started the AAU program in Logan, Ohio, and, invited me to play along on the team. And I was, like, heck yeah, let's go. And, at that time you had to win the state tournament to qualify for nationals. And the national AAU tournament was the only tournament. So you had to be really good on a really good team to even get out of your own state. I mean, it was a battle to get out of the state of Ohio. So much talent in the state, as you know, and then go to nationals and play. And that was your opportunity to be seen by college scouts and recruiters. It was really the only opportunity to be seen, is to make it to nationals. And then all the coaches would annually go to nationals, and you had to play well at nationals, and then you got recognized. And that's really how I got recognized on a national scale from a recruiting standpoint.
And now today there's exposure events every weekend. Coaches like yourself go all over the country to all these events. which makes, the kids today don't understand. I'm not saying they have it easy, but it's much easier to be seen now than it was back in 1993. Because like you said, back then when AAU was truly AAU basketball, you had to fight through 7 or 8 really, really good teams just to get out of the state tournament. And then if you go to nationals, then all the coaches are at nationals.
Well,
Here,
absolutely. And I think,
so here it's like, it's amazing to think about how things have changed.
yeah, and it's changed for the better, obviously, in terms of exposure, and it's great for girls basketball. I'm so glad that it's grown to the point that it has. And as with everything, it's not perfect all the time, but from an exposure perspective, there are hardly any diamonds in the rough. If someone can play, someone's going to find them and they're going to get them on a team. And I think that's just great for the game, that no one is going to be left behind. No one's going to be overlooked. And in our time, that could have happened, if you weren't on one of those national exposure teams qualifying for nationals. So, the game has come a long way. It is a lot easier to be seen. For us, a lot of times it's not, do we know about a kid? It's, we've seen a kid a lot. We've seen a kid, 20 or 30 times in July alone. And so you're very informed as to whether or not, you like a particular player's skill set.
Definitely. So now, when you played at Eastern High School your senior year, you averaged somewhere in the vicinity of 42, 43 points a game. That's a lot of points. So what's the greatest game you've ever been involved in during your high school? Is there a game that just sticks out in your head? We'll talk about one where you blistered somebody here in a minute, but talk about the greatest, most intense game you've ever been in for high school.
The one that comes to my mind was a home game against Ross Southeastern, double overtime game. And just how important, every basket was so important. And obviously I was heavily guarded, always double teamed, sometimes triple teamed. And the gym was packed. We had a student body that had signs and was just, you couldn't get an extra person in the gym. It was standing room only. And, to win that game and double overtime and experience that in front of our home community was one that really stands out to me. There are a handful of games I could talk a lot about, but that one goes down as probably tops on my list.
Several times, and just 5 times you scored 56 or more. You scored 56 and 57 points. And then your senior year, 4 times. Twice in a month you scored 60 or more, including 69 against Portsmouth Clay. Now, can you remember that game against Portsmouth Clay when you had 69? Do you vividly remember that specific game?
Yeah, believe it or not, I don't. I remember the game, but I don't remember as many details as some of the other games. People, always reference the scoring and stuff. And what I told everybody is my points were kind of out of necessity. I didn't have a great team around me. Love my teammates to death. We're still in touch to this day, most of them, and my high school coach and all of that. It's just that for us to win a lot of those games, especially against bigger schools, I had to score a lot. And it was kind of out of necessity to win the game. It was never for any other reason. And, the Clay game, I remember what I remember most about that, Jim, is after the game when someone told me I scored 69, it didn't feel like it. I didn't realize I had that many points that night. That's probably one of the things I remember most is I was shocked that I had that many points that night.
Right. And something Tuck told me also in our conversation, you love to pass the ball. Obviously, when you play with a team like he had during the summer, you didn't have to score 60 points. You had great teammates around you, which allowed you to expand and show off your other parts of your game. You said you love to pass the ball for a better shot for your team.
I'm so glad we're getting that on air because I've taken so much for so many years from my peers talking about how did you lead your team in assists?
Yeah, right.
So we get to put it on air. I actually did lead my team in assists, but I did like to pass, and as I grew and got older and got into coaching, one of the things I realized is, seeing the floor and being a good passer is innate. You don't really teach that. Yes, you can teach the fundamentals at a young age of passing, but actually having that court vision and stuff is really a gift. And that's something I don't think I realized at the time, but you can kind of see something developing and evolving before it even happens. And, with me so heavily guarded, I was able to make a lot of those passes at times to people right up under the basket even.
Another question before we get ready to wrap things up here in a minute is something that we didn't talk about yet, but just if you were giving advice to today's athlete, If you're giving advice to a kid who's a junior in high school, sophomore in high school, what are a couple of the key points of advice you would give them if they want to go to the next level?
Mhm. Well, I stay true to who I am at the core on this one is work ethic. You can't do anything without a work ethic. Most people want something, but very few people truly want to work for it. And I think having a work ethic, especially at that age, really working daily on your craft. I mean, I remember even in high school, I have to give a shout out to Ron McLeese, our janitor, because I think he illegally, I think it's okay to say now, I think he illegally let me in the gym a lot of mornings. But I would go and get there at 5:45, 6 o'clock before school started so I could get my shots in. And I think you have to have that piece. You can't want something and not be willing to work hard for it. So I think that, at the core, that's the advice I would give. Certainly, be on a good AAU team, be on an exposure team where you're going to be seen and all of that, but focus on the fundamentals of the game. So many kids nowadays want to skip steps, and I think those that don't are the ones that really excel modern day.
No, obviously, out in the recruiting trail now, what do you look for? I mean, what as any coach, what would any coach? What are some of the top things? I mean, if a kid consistently scores or passes the ball well, or is really quick and athletic, yeah, that catches your eye. But what are a couple of the things that you watch for specifically in an athlete when you're there to watch them?
Yeah, we have what we call non-negotiables. And to the point of those I go back, work ethic is one of them, not in any particular order. A big one for me is ability to score. We don't want to get someone at the BCS level as an 18-year-old and we're working on their shot. I think they have to bring that to you. And we can obviously help them get better at certain things, but we don't want to change a jump shot at age 18 coming to our school. So ability to score is big. And then one of the things that we really dissect is basketball IQ. Knowing and understanding the game and being aware of things. Believe it or not, you'll talk to some kids that might not know what March Madness or the NCAA tournament is about. We want people that are understanding of, what happens in women's basketball and also on as a whole, but also on the court. They understand the basics of the game and interaction, and then attitude is a big one for us, coachability.
Definitely. As we wrap things up, I kind of teased everybody a little bit about an announcement coming tonight. You and I had already talked about this, and I talked to a couple of other former players, but I'm excited to announce to everybody that I have been looking to do something for about 3 years now. I'd like to write a book. That's my ultimate goal, write a book, but I don't know what I want to write about. I don't want to write about my ventures in basketball because maybe 2 people will read it, my mom and dad maybe, if they feel like it. But, all kidding aside, I thought, what would be really good to write about? And then it just hit me one day, why not write a book on the history of Ohio girls basketball over the 30 years that have been involved? 35, but I cut it off at 1990. And so I thought, what a better idea to talk to a few of the players that I have a relationship with. And it's like, let's do a book on the top players that have come up through the ranks from 1990 till 2020. Obviously, you made the cut. And, you and I talked about it, and you were like, I'm on board. Let's do this because it's a great opportunity. Tamika, I talked to Tamika, and she was all about it. And I talked to 3 or 4 other players, and they're like, yeah, let's make this happen. It's something like this. You want to leave a legacy. Everybody, you do as a player and a coach, I do with what I do. But the book is something that, as we talked about, is huge for the history of this game.
Well, what a way to leave a legacy. I think this is just a great venture you're taking on. And I think there's so many people with the rich tradition in the state of Ohio that are going to really appreciate this, Jim. And who better to write the book than someone who's covered it extensively for all these years. And like I said, I can remember you when I was just a little kid and how passionate you were about covering girls basketball, and you didn't have hidden agendas with it. I mean, it's pure, it's real. And I know this book will be outstanding, and there's so many people that are going to want to read it. And I want to thank you because I think, you taking the time to really invest and do this, again, still current day, giving to the game as you always have. is just incredible. And I want to be one of the first to thank you for this. And I think it's a tremendous idea, and I can't wait till the finished product is out, and I can't wait to buy one.
Yeah, well, it's going to be exciting it's going to really make people think about the historians and the people that have been around the game for a while. You know, and Tuck and I talked, and every time, and we went through some of the players, and he's like, "Oh, wow, yeah, I'd forgotten about her. Oh, yeah, she was a great." I mean, it's like memory. It's like a memory lane flooding toward you with all the great players that have been from back in the day, even to like this year. The last couple of years, as you probably know, Ohio is loaded with girls basketball. And what a better way to honor them with a book to talk about the history. So
Oh,
I thank you. I thank you for all your support for the last 25 plus years. And you know, like I said, I'm excited that you came on here with me. You're the first person I've ever actually used this with, as far as like the interview process. And I'm excited to be able to start the hard work to get all these players connected through the book.
yes, and I can't wait. And hey, first in life are important. I tell our kids that all the time. So first Zoom call, great job. This was fun, and we'll never forget this coronavirus venture going on in our world either. But thank you, Jim. And this has been great to visit with you and relive some things from the past. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Definitely. Marlene Stollings, thank you very much. I look forward to catching up with you maybe on the road if we ever get out on the road. And best of luck in Lubbock next season as you guys continue to grow your program.
Thank you.
Thank you.